Good afternoon and welcome to Career Development Network. My name is Susan Langford and I manage the Career Development Network program here at NCBiotech. Before we get to our introduction of the speaker, I'd like to walk through some job seeker resources that we have here at NCBiotech. And you can get to all of these by going to our website. So first of all, check out our careers and training site on our website. This can help you learn about jobs in the life sciences, training opportunities, and events and networking opportunities. So this is kind of a one-stop shop, and I encourage you to check that out. We also have our Career Center, which is essentially a jobs board. And this is unique because it lists just life sciences jobs here in North Carolina. So it's jobs specific to North Carolina. It's very inexpensive for companies to post their jobs to our jobs board. So you're going to see announcements for opportunities at maybe startup companies that don't have a large budget to post their jobs on Indeed or some of the larger jobs boards. You can also set this up to give you alerts when jobs come up that fit your profile. And so please go and check that out. We have a fully up-to-date company directory, which lists all of the more than 600 life sciences companies within the state. And this is fully searchable by region or by keyword. So if you're working in RNA or RNA technologies, then you can just search for that. It'll pull up all the companies doing that kind of work. And so this is a great way to come up with a list of target companies for your search. We sponsor over 20 different exchange groups, which are networking groups that in all different areas of the life sciences. We have a plant molecular biology group, Triangle Women in STEM, Women in Bio, Next Generation Sequencing, Bioprocessing, Biomanufacturing and Process Development. These bring together scientists from academia, from government, and from industry. And so these can be great ways to get out and meet people in your field of interest. I encourage you to join our LinkedIn group called the NC Life Sciences Career Community. This can greatly expand your social network and help you meet up with people who are working at different companies in the state. So please join that. I think we have almost 2,000 members of that group right now. 3,000. Okay. And finally, you can sign up to receive the Dish, which is a newsletter that comes out bi-weekly. And this is more geared toward entry level and those types of jobs. So please sign up for that. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Nellie Scott. Nellie is a consummate professional with 20 years of direct sales, channel management, and operations experience. Prior to retiring last year, she was a senior manager of North America channel sales at SAS. She aptly describes herself as a sleeves rolled up person who enjoys being engaged and getting things done. And she applies this same mentality in her retirement as she pays it forward by helping others with their careers. You will never approach networking or your career search in the same way after you hear from Nellie. Please give a warm welcome to Nellie Scott.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. How many of you think that career search is like easy? All of you, right? Yeah, no, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But there is a methodology, and I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've paid a lot of money to learn how to do things in order to accelerate it. But let me give you an example. One of the things that Susan talked about is about the community, about LinkedIn. Let me share with you right off the bat. A lot of my colleagues don't are not active or don't really activate their LinkedIn until when? Until they're looking for a job, right? And then it's like, oh, hurry up and hustle, and they try to hurry up and post things. That's not the time to do it. The time to do it is while you're still employed and while you've got things to share, things to talk about, because that is where employers and hiring managers are going to look to first. They're going to look up your profile. They're going to look to see what you're interested in, all kinds of things. So make sure you do that. But let me start out by telling you a little story to emphasize the importance of looking for careers through connecting with people. Because you can go online and we know what kind of results we get when we go online. Right after I left Lenovo, I went over to SAS, and a colleague of mine at Lenovo called me up one day. What is your name, sir?
Adam.
Evan? Adam?
Adam.
Adam. So let's just assume that Adam called me, and he says, Nellie, he says, I'm thinking about leaving Lenovo, and I have found the perfect job. I have found the perfect job at Dell. And Nellie, you used to work at Dell. So can I buy you lunch and kind of pick your brain a little bit? I said, sure. So Adam and I go to lunch, and he tells me about this wonderful position at Dell. And I said, this is on a Thursday afternoon. We go to lunch on Thursday afternoon. And Adam says, I applied online, but it's been 3 weeks and I haven't heard anything. I said, okay. So I said, Adam, tell me the job that you're looking for and tell me, where it's located, all kinds of details and so on and so forth. So he gives me the information. I go back to my office Thursday afternoon. I go on LinkedIn. I actually went to my phone book and I contacted somebody at Dell. Now, I hadn't been at Dell for 20 years. My generation of coworkers have long gone, except for one guy. So I called Richard out of the blue, and the importance of maintaining good relationships with people you work with is because they will remember you. So I called Richard, and I said, Richard, this is Nellie. This was his response, Nellie, so excited to hear from you. And we talked a little bit about families and so on. I said, Richard, I need you to do me a favor. I said, I have a job ID number. Would you mind looking up to see who the hiring manager is? He said, sure, I can look it up. I hear him clicking away. He comes back and gives me a name of Michael something something. So I said, terrific. So while we're having a conversation about chit chats and kids and families and what's going on at Dell and all kinds of stuff, I am on my computer looking this Michael up on LinkedIn. I find him on LinkedIn, send him a note, I connect him, and I sent him a note. I said, Michael, I understand you're looking for a sales professional in the Raleigh area. I've got the perfect candidate for you. Can we connect? Anyway, while I'm talking to Richard, I said, Richard, can you do me a favor? I said, would you mind forwarding Adam's resume onto Michael for me? A little hesitation there. He goes, yeah, okay. So I send it to him while we're talking. I'm emailing him Adam's resume, and he sends it off to Michael and blind copies me. And this is what he said in his message to Michael. Michael, I don't know Adam from Adam, but I do know Nellie. And if Nellie thinks that you should talk to Adam, it's probably worth your time. And blind copies me. So that's Thursday afternoon. And Thursday afternoon, I had also sent a LinkedIn message to Michael, the hiring manager. Friday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting dressed and getting ready to leave the house for work. I get a phone call. And it's Adam. And I go, hey, Adam, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. How are you doing? Getting ready for a big day, all this sort of stuff. No, Nellie, he goes, I have an interview at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how we were able to, that's how he was able to accelerate. He went from not having 3 weeks of non-response time to within less than 24 hours. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Michael had reached out to Adam and said, could you meet me at 1 o'clock? So at 1 o'clock, Adam had the interview. And the good news of the story is that my friend also got the job as well. So that's the power of connection. If you do it all online and expect goodness to come out of that, there's a process, there's a lengthy process. So why don't we use the people that we do know and try to accelerate that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I may sprinkle some things that are of interest. Like, I'll tell you one thing that doesn't work. When I moved over to SAS, if anybody knows SAS is a very highly coveted company to work for in the area. Everybody wants to work at SAS, and nobody ever gets a chance because people die at SAS. They never leave, you know. They're there for 30, 40, 50 years, for crying out loud. So it's really hard to get in there, but I somehow managed to get into SAS. And here's what doesn't work. As soon as I got in there, how many phone calls do you think I got from people at Lenovo? Gazillions, right? And here was the phone call. Nellie, if you hear of anything, let me know. That doesn't work, because those of us who've gotten into a company, especially those who are just starting maybe at another company, we have one job to do, and that's to manage our business. We are not your recruiter. We are not your placement agent. Now, it is different if you have a relative, right? Your brother-in-law works at a company, then there's an obligation. But other than that, you tell us, hey, if you hear of anything, let me know. We're not going to be there. We're going to be in conference rooms, and we may hear of opportunities or not, but that's not what we're focused on. So that doesn't really work unless, again, you have an obligatory relationship like a family or very personal friend or something like that. But that, hey, what is your name, Mark? Hey, Mark, you got a good gig. Let me know if you hear anything, okay? Yeah, you're going to be there 8 hours a day, and that's what you're going to be doing? Not likely. So that doesn't work. So let's talk about some of the things that are really important, because there is a process to this. There's a gazillion ways to go about finding a search. This is my way of accelerating that process. The first thing is really you have to do some research. And one of the places I encourage people to start is start identifying and really knowing what your natural strengths are. What your natural strengths are not dependent on your education. They're not dependent on your work experience. They are what you are intuitively good at. And the reason I say that is because I believe that if most of us were doing work in the areas we're passionate about or doing something we really, really love, number one, we're going to be happier and we're going to be a lot more successful. But if we're going into any job that we can get and really not like what we're doing because it doesn't comply with what we're good at, we're not going to be that happy, and we're going to be looking for another position in another year. So try as best as you can to find things that you're really, really naturally good at. When I work with people, the first thing I do, and I know it might sound redundant to some of you, I'm looking at you in the audience, you probably have done this a million times in your jobs, but Strengths Finder is still a great way to identify what you're naturally good at. When you take the Strengths Finder assessment, make sure you allow yourself a good 45 minutes of undivided time and attention. Don't put your phone in your bedroom or your office where you're doing a test. Put everything out. Kids, dogs, everything gets locked out, because you don't want to miss any of the words. And it really is just a million questions that you get asked and you get answered, and then it produces 3 documents. Now, looking for your next career. And by the way, from this point forward, you are not looking for a job. You are looking for your next career. You are redirecting your career. I am choosing to redirect my career. I'm taking my career in a different avenue. But you're not looking for a job. I know it's semantics, it's just word nitpicking, but there is a psychological association with, if you're looking for a job, then it might be temporary. You know, you're probably not looking to make a full commitment. But if you're looking for a career, that is a commitment. Okay, so from this point forward, anybody that you talk to, the person at the, at Trader Joe's or person at church, I am in the middle of transitioning my career. Or I love this part, I'm redirecting my career. Because right now we're pivoting. I'm pivoting my career. There's a lot of that going on. People who are leaving the tech space, for example, and going into real estate or going into wellness or something like that. People are pivoting their career. But back to StrengthsFinder. The StrengthsFinder produces, I believe, 3 documents, but one of them is what they call your themes, your 5 towering strengths. I'm going to tell you now what people sometimes have a hard time doing with these 5 themes is transitioning them or interpreting them into business impact, right? So if the strengths assessment say, hey, you're really good with people. Well, great, but how do you make that into a business impact? Well, I'm effective at dealing with multifunctional teams, right? Because today we're not working in our own little silos anymore. We're working with operations, we're working with finance, we're working with marketing, we're working with, all kinds of different departments. It's not a siloed environment anymore. So being able to work cross-functionally with other team members from other departments is really, really important today. So if your strengths, your towering strength is say, hey, you're great with people, that's what that means. But you have to translate that into what it means from a business impact. The other part of this that it gives you, and by the way, and I was having this conversation with Scott, it is highly competitive right now. Any advantage that you can take to differentiate yourself is really important. When I was going through this process, I took my 5-theme summary, it's a 1-page summary, and I attached that sucker to my resume. So when I went on interviews, it was there, and I made sure to point out, and by the way, because StrengthsFinder is really an independent assessment of what you're naturally good at. So it's not like, hey, look at me, aren't I great? This is an independent assessment, and I thought you might be interested in my 5 themes. The reason why, because other people are going to walk in there and they're going to have a resume that looks very similar to mine, but they may not have this additional list. Now, why is the themes important? If you're a hiring manager, and I have been a hiring manager for many, many years, we may look at someone and go, are they going to be a fit in the culture? Those 5 themes will give an insight to whether you're going to be a fit in that culture, right? It'll talk about what you're naturally good at. The other aspect is, and I had this at SAS, I went for a particular position at SAS, and I had my themes, I had all my experience and everything. I was like, yeah, you know what, Adam? This might not be the right position for you. However, you should talk to my colleague. And I got transferred over to another person who then hired me. So as many at-bats as you can get once you enter a company, maybe they're not hiring today, maybe somebody in their organization is. You'll try to figure that out. But your StrengthsFinder will help you do that, give you that extra edge that you need. Now, Susan talked about 900 companies, 600 companies you have on your database? That's the list of companies to start with if you're in this field. If you're in a different field or you're looking to transition to a different field, go find those list of companies. But that list of companies is a research, and it is time consuming, and you need to do that. In addition to what kind of company you want to work with, you also want to know what size of company do you want to work with. There's all kinds of advantages. If you work for a high-end company like IBM, for example, you need to know up front that companies that are big and established like IBM, it's really hard to move the needle because they're so established, everything's all processes, everything's all set. It's really hard to move the needle. It's hard for those companies to make decisions, right? So a mid-sized company who is in growth mode, they are easier to make decisions, easier to get promotions, probably easier to get funding maybe. But then if you go on the other scope, when you get a small startup, you're always going to be battling funding, right? You're barely going to get there for a year, and the clock is going to start ticking again where you're going to go through the funding phase. And then everybody's attention gets, and work effort gets disrupted because you're in this funding space. So you really have to look at it and say, where do you want to be? I can tell you, for me personally, I worked in Fortune 500 companies only. But I worked in the startup phases of their services unit, They were starting a new business unit because I was really good at the startup. I just didn't want to be in a startup world where I was having to look for funding. But a startup inside of a major corporation that already has the funding and everything else, that was me. So figure out where you want to be. The other aesthetics part of it is look at these beautiful grounds that NCBiotech is at. If this is the lifestyle that you want, where you got jogging paths and beautiful aesthetics, building and grounds, then put that at the top of your list. But if you're okay looking at going into a high-rise building in downtown Raleigh, so these are all the research elements that you have to understand about yourself before you start aggressively pursuing and looking for a career. We're going to talk a little bit about this too, and that is building your marketing plan. You are the CEO of your product, and your product is you. So how do you get people to know about it? I do another talk besides this one. I do two other talks. One's on salary negotiations, which is my favorite, but the other one is, you've heard it, people say, Adam, oh, it's all about who you know. Well, I can tell you that it's about who knows you. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. So how do you get people to know who you are? Well, they won't know who you are if you're not out there talking to people. So building a marketing plan to get you to have a conversation with people, and we're going to talk about how to do that, how to have a conversation with people. Also, your marketing plan is what you use with people that you're not interviewing with. You're just kind of looking for people who know other people, right? And who can make referrals to you. So we'll talk about that as well. And then finally, it's a numbers game. I've been in sales my entire career, and I apologize because I look at the whole world as a sales plan. How do I get more people? How do I contact people? When do I follow up? How do I get them to call me back? What's the next message I send them to? I mean, I think in those worlds, and to me, it's numbers. The more people you talk to, the more you're going to get to the no's. In sales, the sooner we get to the no's, the sooner we get to yeses. So yes, let me talk to as many people as I possibly can until I find somebody who, oh, Nellie knows somebody at Dell, and she's going to call Richard, and all of a sudden we're going to get an interview, and the next thing you got a job. Okay? Questions so far or thoughts? And by the way, this is your session, so feel free to ask me any questions. Just speak a little loud for me. Excellent.
So thank you so much. You mentioned about the strength finder. Do you have any links that you can provide for us for how do we do the strength finder?
Thank you. Very good question. Strengths Finder is actually a book. You can get it on Amazon for either $17 or $27, but it's a small little book about this big. But the beauty of it is the back of it, there is a key that you go onto a computer, you use your key, you set up your account, you use your key, and then the questionnaire will come up, and then all the reports will be sent to you. By the way, when you do this and you get your 5 themes, send it to people you know. And say, what do you think? How do you think is this accurate about me? Send it to former bosses, your colleagues, your cousins, your best girlfriends who will tell you everything and anything that you want to know. Send it to people and say, how do you think? Do you think this is a good reflection about me? And people will go, oh, I don't know if I consider you a data person, maybe a people person, but data, I don't think, they'll tell you the truth. So feel free to do that. But yeah, it is a book, and the key is on the back of the book.
Question, do you have any tips on, when you have a full-time job, your personal life, it's kind of difficult to reach out to former colleagues and kind of, keep in contact and let them know where you are in your career. Do you have any tips on like how often you should reach out to them and how you should do it? Because I don't know. That's, I think, one of my difficulties that I have struggled in the past.
Yeah, reaching out to former colleagues you're talking about? Yes. Do it purposely. If you're going to call someone, do it with a purpose. Read articles. Send them an article and say, hey, I'm going to call you to discuss. I'm curious to see what you think about this article. Have a purpose for it, not just, do you have a job for me? That will not work. And it's actually that kind of sense of desperation. I hate to say this, but it's not, it's just not, it will not produce the results you're looking for. But what is your name? Ruth. But Ruth, if I send you an article I just read on artificial intelligence or something, I'm going to send it to you and say, Ruth, I'm going to call you Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I'm just curious to see what you think about this topic. And then you follow up and you call her at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Maybe she's there, maybe she's not. But while you're talking, say, so what do you think about this? By the way, what else? What's going on in your company? What's going on? Are there any changes? And then you can go ahead and say, I'm still pursuing redirecting my career. I'm still pursuing pivoting my career. But when I get to the next section, which is really the marketing plan, that's the person you want to go, hey, I have a marketing plan. Would you mind spending a couple of minutes with me and let me review it with you? This gentleman here had a question, please.
I have a question about your second point, compile the list of contacts. As Susan mentioned, there are like 900 companies. So what's a good number, you will say? Because if it is too low, you don't want to miss out and you don't want to go crazy by like selecting 30
you can't boil
companies.
the ocean. You can't boil the ocean. You got to start out with, in sales, so what we do in sales, ABC. Your top companies are probably 25 of the top companies or top 10 that you absolutely would do anything for if you could get a job there, right? Then your B accounts, right? Your B targets are companies that, they're not doing well maybe, or maybe they're struggling, but it could be an opportunity there. And C's, my C category of companies that I target are companies that I used to go practice my interview skills at. I really didn't care if I got a job there or not, but there were great companies that I could probably get foot in the door and I could practice my interview skills at. So that's kind of the way I looked at companies.
Do you mind giving a like number? I know there are two types. You said like, let's say 30 or.
Yeah. I mean, your total list shouldn't be no more than 50. 50 is a lot of companies, because think about the process that you have to go through. You got to go find somebody that knows somebody at that company. Then you got to contact them. Then you got to email them. You might connect with them through LinkedIn. You might send them a couple of articles that you are interested in, try to build that rapport in that building. You can't do that with 300 companies.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
So it's really what's manageable. Thank you. Gentleman in the back, thank you.
We just talk for a second about building relationships, because there's a lot of AI tools and a lot of people saying, oh, just contact all these people, get them on LinkedIn and get them to that. Like, it's still important to kind of slow down to speed up, isn't it? Like, build a relationship, even if you don't, because you were saying don't ask for a job, don't bring that up pushy overtly, but that still matters. You can still do that and still get results. Because I think sometimes you're looking for the number that's going to hit, but that relationship building side can yield good things, can it?
Yes, relationships are really important. And you heard my first story about, hey, somebody who connected me, I contacted somebody I had worked with 20 years ago. So the power of the connections are fine. But at the same time, dang, we got to get a job. We got to get a job. So we're going to talk to as many people as we can possibly can, whether we know them deeply or not. And when I get to the market, what is your name, sir? John, when I get to the marketing plan, you'll see how you can use that with people you don't know that well. And it's going to give you, how do you engage in those conversations? And then how do you get them to let them know you're looking for a job and help you, even the people that you don't know well enough. Okay, so hold on to that, John. Yes, please.
Wait, I gotta get you a mic anyway, sorry. Okay.
We've got people online.
In here.
Thank you. And this, folks, is how we get our 10,000 steps.
I just wanted to, my name is Meg. I just wanted to add to some information that you just gave. You can download a list of your contacts from LinkedIn. You can ask them to send you, and they'll put it in a CSV file that you can put into Excel. And then you can kind of review, especially if they work at a certain company, that you're interested in. That is a helpful thing because it's kind of doable. It's a list.
That's a good idea. That's really a good idea. Yeah. The key thing, and John, I want to go back to your question a little bit, because when it comes to relationships, you have to foster them. You can't, I mean, if you, I'm sorry, your name is? Audrey. If I call Audrey and say, hey, Audrey, we haven't talked in about 3 months or so, but do you have a job for me? Do you know anybody who's looking for a job? I mean, it's just, you got to warm it up. You got to, Audrey, let me send you an article. Audrey, how's the family? How are things going? Before you ever get to that point. But at the same time, it's a balance, because there's people that we don't know well that have a lot of contacts. By the way, if you look in your own neighborhood, you have no idea the kid who plays with your kid in soccer, that their father is, or their mom is, VP of marketing somewhere. Sometimes we don't know people that are in our own church or our own neighborhood and what levels of the organization they are. So this is a part of your career search where you talk to everybody and anybody. You could be sitting at a Durham Bulls game, and the people next to you, you turn around, you talk to them. So what do you do? Really? How long have you been there? That's interesting. I'm in the middle of pivoting my career. Could you and I have a chat next week? You really have to talk to just about anybody.
We did have one question online that I want to make sure we get to, which was, now when you go on LinkedIn, often so much of what you're seeing is people you're not connected to and just kind of the influencers that are being shared. How do you kind of use LinkedIn to the best of your ability when you may not be seeing those that you're connected with, or kind of the content you would want to see? How can you best use it and best show up on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so the best, lots to unpack there. First of all, the people, there's a 250 rule. Does everybody know the 250 rule? That's the average of people that most people know. And you know how they came up against that 250 rule? So everybody knows at least 250 people, because that's the number of wedding invitations, funeral announcements. That's what gets ordered. So the average is 250 people. So that's how many people know. So these people who are influencers in your LinkedIn network connection, think about who they know and who can you connect and who can you start to follow. Sometimes on LinkedIn, you follow people not so much because you want to get to them, because maybe you want their content, and their content, something that you're going to then turn around and repost as if it's something of interest to you. And then people who are looking for candidates are looking at you and say, Mark, what kind of things let's see, what's Mark posting about? What's he interested in? So that's just another way to, kind of third-party testimonial, if you will, by using other people's content. I'm not sure I got all the questions on that. Pearl? You were good, yeah. Okay, all right, good. All right, let's go on. I know our time is kind of limited. So this is developing your marketing plan. And did we give them out before?
We're going to give them out after.
Okay, we're going to give them out afterwards. So you're going to have 2 documents from me today. One is a filled out marketing plan, which is what we're going to go through. And then I'm going to give you the template so that you can take it home and build it on your own. But let's start out. What's the purpose of a marketing plan? First of all, when people go looking for connections or referrals, here's my resume. Mark, here's my resume. I'm looking for another job. Do you think you could take a look at it for me? Isn't that great? I'm suggesting that you don't use your resume except when you're actually in an interview. Your marketing plan is going to look very similar to a resume. It's going to have certain components of a resume, but it is designed for you to have a conversation. And I built this not so that it requires an engineering degree, but to give you a platform from which to have a conversation with people and to ask that $50,000 question, which I will let you know. So what does that look like? Looks like a resume. People are going to go, oh, it's a resume. Well, yeah, there's some elements that are just the same. So objective, what is it that you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And your position and statement, you might find these exactly on your resume, but that's about as far as it goes. You're not putting in your work experience and your educational, prowess. You're not looking for any of those all the awards you won, none of that stuff. This is very practical. I'm having coffee with Mark, and Mark, I'm going to show you this document. And what I'm going to do, Mark, is I'm going to call you and say, Mark, I'm redirecting my career. And I built together a marketing plan, a personal marketing plan. Mark, would you have coffee with me? And let me show this to you because I really would like your feedback. Mark responded like any human being will do. Humans respond in kind. If you ask, first of all, we're humans. Anybody who wants my opinion is like, oh God, yes, right? There's a certain ego about any of us that, oh my gosh, I'm important enough that somebody would actually want to know what I think. And you do, you want their feedback. So you're not being misdirecting or mischievous or anything like that. You're really being as honest and authentic as you can because you do need people's feedback, okay? The next part of it, this is the part that comes from your Strengths Finder assessment. These are your competencies. They have nothing to do with how many years of experience you had in manufacturing or clinical trials. They have nothing to do with the fact that you have a master's from Princeton. This is what you're naturally competent at, what you're naturally good at. And you can create headers or not. You can create a header for strategies, a header for communications, or header for risk assessments, whatever you want to create, as long as it makes sense. Or you can just take off the credits and say, hey, I'm really, really talented at setting priorities. I'm really, really good at identifying the potential people and getting the potential out of people. I'm great at cross-functional relationships. Whatever you're good at, that StrengthsFinder has identified as your talent, your strength, that's what you want to address to. The rest of your search, remember, I talked about the size of company. Well, are you willing to relocate? There's not as much of that going on today as it was when I was going through my career. I relocated 3 times. I don't think, unless you're director and above, I don't think you're seeing a lot of relocations, but some jobs do, if you're doing event planning, you're on the road all the time. How far do you want to travel from your house? COVID kind of, made us really comfortable to be working from home in our, jammies and our, fuzzy sweaters, fuzzy slippers. But is that what you want to do? Or do you want to go into a company and actually have some interaction, be part of a team, a community? Those are the things that only you can answer for yourselves. And you really have to give some thought as to what you want to do. The size of organization, the type of industry. Are you going to stay in the clinical biotech area? Do you want to, transition to another field? You can do that. Just because you spend 12 years in biotech doesn't mean that you can't transfer to technology or marketing or some other, entity or position. It's just a matter of how you do it, right? The size of company, we talked about the size of organization. I know the size of my organization, where I really, really thrive. I know it's $1 billion and below. Anything about $1 billion, my skill set's just not a good match. So you have to know what size of the company. And again, do you want to transition to, do you want to go as far as Wake Forest, or you want to stay in the Raleigh area, RTP area? How far are you comfortable traveling? This is where, so this is a great list. Or, I'm sorry, your name, please? Meg? Meg, suggestion, download all the contacts that you have on LinkedIn, go looking for. There is a business journal in the area that you can look at companies in the business journal. Chamber of Commerce's, have directories. It's not that hard now. You can go to the library, you can search anything on the computer now. It's really not that hard, but what you do have to find out is who exactly do you want to work for? And this, I think, was my list when I did this. And one of the companies that's not on there, Lenovo. I had no clue, earthly idea who Lenovo was. I was in Austin working for Dell. But Lenovo, somebody said to me, have you thought about Lenovo? Who was Lenovo? Well, blah, 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 blah. Really? That's who I ended up working for. So let me tell you how this works. So how it works is just like I started with Mark. Mark, I'm redirecting my career and I built together a personal marketing plan. I'd love to get your feedback. I used to invite people to lunch and then it got really expensive. So then I went to coffee. So Mark, would you be kind enough to have some coffee with me? I really would like your feedback. Okay, so now I've got this document and I'm going to walk Mark through it. And Mark, what I've done here is you and I don't know each other really well, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background of what my objective is, also my core competencies, just to give you a little bit of introduction. And some of my conversations went, really, Nellie, I had no idea you did risk assessment. Really? I had no idea. Oh yes, let me tell you about it. One of my projects, I did this and this, and it gives you an opportunity to tell people who don't know your work, your career environment, right? They might know you personally from church, from soccer or whatever, but they don't know your work product. So it's a great opportunity to give stories. Oh yeah, once upon a time I did this, and Dell was, oh my gosh, and then I tell you, and then oh my God, we had a win-win solution. Okay, so now you've told a story about some of your core competencies, and then you're gonna give them a minute to kind of leak through this stuff, right? Just the hardest thing is to be silent. You really have to shush up. Once you give this to somebody and you let go, okay, it's now in their hand. You really have to just shush up and just let them browse it, peruse it. They'll look up and ask questions if they need to, et cetera, et cetera. So Mark, this is where we get to that $50,000 question that you're asking. So Mark, after looking through this, number one, do you have any questions or do you have any insights about? No, Nellie, I had no idea. Like I said, I didn't know you did risk assessment. This is really interesting. Tell me more about that. And we have a little more discussion about that. Now, Mark, on the next page, I've highlighted some companies that I would really like to work with. And my question to you, Mark, there are three key questions here. My first question, Mark, is there any company on there that shouldn't be on my list? Why is that important? People might say, oh, such and such company, they turn and burn people like crazy. It's like people just, they just whiz through it. Not that you want to take them off your list, but you want to know going in that that's the environment that you're going into, okay? The next question is, oh, that's good to know, Mark. Let me make a note of that. Make a little note. This is interactive. So you make a little note. Hey, be careful with company XYZ. Mark, my next question is to you. Are there any companies on this list that I'm missing? This is how Lenovo showed up. Oh yeah, have you heard about Lenovo? No, I haven't heard about Lenovo. Who is Lenovo? Well, never bought the PC business from IBM. Well, really? Yeah, they're out in Raleigh. Oh, really? I'll make a list of that. Put Lenovo on the list. Now, this is the third and final question. This is your $50,000 question. Elizabeth, do you know anyone in these companies that you would feel comfortable making an introduction for me? Now, the next phase is interesting because the next phase, again, if you're talking to somebody that Mark and I don't know each other from Adam, right? We don't know each other very well. There might be some hesitation. They might go, oh, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. I really appreciate it. Let them off the hook because if they're not comfortable, don't make it hard. They may become references for you. They may become, acquaintances later on. So don't mess up that relationship. Say, Mark, I want to thank you for your time and for your feedback on this. This is really important. And that's it. But what I found most of the time, they go, well, I do know somebody over at Brocade. I know a buddy of mine used to work still works at Brocade, but he's down in San Diego. That's okay. Would you mind making an introduction for me? I'll handle the rest if you'll just make an introduction. Yeah, sure, I'll give them a call. Or I'll send them an email or something, and they will do that. Or would you mind giving me the name of your contact, and I'll be happy to reach out to them if that makes it more convenient for you. Now you've got a tree of people that are hopefully giving you names to other companies, et cetera, names that you would not otherwise have unless you're really working LinkedIn day and night, okay? That's what you want. You want companies, you want people to identify companies who should not be on the list, companies who should be on the list so you can add them, and who do you know, and are you comfortable making that introduction? And that's how you progress your career. It is not necessarily, I'm not here to say don't do things online because you can't escape that. You have to go through some portions of it online. But if you want more people to know that you are looking to redirect your career, then you've got to talk to more people. And what a great conversation to have about yourself by saying, I have a marketing plan. I really would love your insights, your people's, your relatives, your neighbors. Hey, Elizabeth, I see you're home today. Do you mind if I come over for coffee? I've got something I want to show you, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. You know, scoot on over to your neighbor's house and 15-minute coffee break and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm thinking. Be genuine, because we really have to, I mean, don't go in there with a pretense of, oh, yeah, I'm just going to try to get your contacts and, you know, out the door I go. Be genuine, because people will see that, will see through you if you're not. Questions about the process does not require an engineering degree. This is a conversation maker, and it is not designed to be your resume. Yes, please. You are so kind.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm wondering how often, or if you think it's possible to customize this based on who you're reaching out to. And the reason I'm asking that question is because I've had a 20-year career and I am transitioning it, and I am not 100% sure what area exactly I want to transition it to. I've got it narrowed down, but if I'm applying for a job, I'm definitely customizing my resume for that.
Right.
So would you bucket these, so to speak, relative to industries or type of position?
You can do that, Lindsay. However, the marketing plan, one of the reasons I say look at your competencies is because that has nothing to do with what industry you've been in.
Fair. I'm more thinking of objective,
Yeah.
that first section.
Yes, you can customize that, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We may have to customize our resumes, like have 5 different versions of resumes, right? Different position, different fields, different, you know, opportunities, so yes. But marketing plan, yes, you can customize that top portion of it, but your competencies, this is why I went for competencies rather than, hey, here's my experience and the people I work for, because that will peg-hole you?
Shoehorn you? I don't know. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up StrengthsFinder. It's a good reminder. I've used it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Every 5 years I do it. It's consistent, my top 10.
Yep.
But the idea of putting it into business
impact
is interesting.
And attaching it with your resume.
Yeah, very interesting idea I hadn't thought of. Thank you.
Try to do that so that you're competitive. Let's move on to a couple of things. Any other questions online? Okay.
So I have a comment about this. I think of the personal marketing plan as a good way to make it easy for other people to help you.
Yes. It does 2 things, right? It makes it easier for you to have a conversation with somebody because it is awkward. If you've been unemployed for any length of time, I got to tell you, and then I have to go reach out to Elizabeth and have a conversation. Elizabeth, look, I haven't worked in like 6 months, and really, I mean, that's not a comfortable conversation for, quite frankly, for either party, right? For either party. If you're on the end of not been unemployed for a long time, I work with a lot of people who have been in that category. One of the first things that I have to work on with people is rebuild the confidence. Because when you've been unemployed for 6 months, 8 months, a year, I have a friend of mine from SAS, a year went by and he was a top-notch guy. A year went by and he could not land a job and he was good. So when I started working with him, one of the first things is we have to figure out how to get our confidence back. And we start by going, hey, I deserve a seat at this table. Whether I've worked a year in the last year, I've worked for 20 years in this field. I am a good employee. I deserve to be at this table looking for another career, and I deserve another career. You have to get that confidence in there. You lack that confidence, it will manifest itself physically in some way, right? Either desperation or whatever. But the other part of it, Susan, to your point, is that it's also an easier conversation to have with the other person so that you have a platform on which to have discussions on. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, I hope that this is relevant to where I'm at currently. I just graduated 3 months ago from a master's. I find your advice to be very well suited to the topic, even though I'm not reinventing my career. But you did mention that certain work environments that you would like to know with like certain companies, like how they would treat their employees. How would that, let's say, go for someone like me who's been trying to apply to jobs for about 3 months now and is more so looking at roles, not even just that they're qualified for, but overqualified for in order to potentially get a position and get your foot in the door for your career.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. And quite frankly, a lot of the people that I work with are people that are just coming out of college. And what's interesting for the people that are coming out of college is because you don't have 20 years of experience behind you, right? And you're really kind of, kickstarting your career. One of the things that I tell them to do is everything that you've ever done, translate it into a business impact. I'll give you an example. So what do we do when we're in college? What kind of jobs do we get? We get cashier at Trader Joe's. We work part-time at a restaurant. We bartend. We do all kinds of things. So I had a young man who was coming out of college, and he had been working at Whole Foods or somebody like that, right? And I said, what do you do at Whole Foods? Just to give you an example of how to transition things to a business environment. And he says, well, I'm a cashier. I said, is that really what you do? I said, or do you process hundreds and thousands of transactions per day, driving revenue for Whole Foods while making sure that their most elite customers get on their day as quickly as possible? Right? Right, John? So it's taking what you've done as a college, student, whatever positions you've had or whatever experience you've had, whether it's coaching soccer, whatever it is, figure out what it is and transition it into a business vocabulary and business impact. If you've been coaching soccer for a while as a college student or something, say, hey, I have been nurturing young people and developing young people, build that up so that people who are in business will recognize that that is a business attribute to do that. Yes, please. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Kate. So I was wondering, we were talking about the marketing plan versus the conversation you had with not Adam. Is there a distinction between the conversation you have where you're directly like, this is a job that I'm interested in, person that works at that company, can you contact me, put me in contact with someone, versus this marketing plan where you're going and saying, well, this is who I am. Do you have any ideas for me, any feedback?
Yeah, no, Kate, you're absolutely right. There is a differentiation between the two. If you got a job, this is one of the things, so calling me and saying, hey, if you hear of anything, let me know. We said that's not going to work. But if you have a job ID, if somebody says, Nellie, I've identified a job at SAS, this is the job ID number. Do you know anyone that you could connect me with? Would you feel comfortable making an introduction? Then yes, I've got something to work with. And still, Kate, I may not know you, and therefore I may turn around and say, I'm really not comfortable. No problem. Thank you so much for your time, and you move on. But you might get lucky enough that says, oh, sure, yeah, I'll send an email. I'll make an introduction. That'd be great. Or if you could give me their contact, I'll follow up with them. I'll do the work, right? Because one of the things you want to assure people is that you're not asking them to walk your resume, do the interview for you. Do not ask them for doing all that stuff. You just want an introduction. And by the way, folks, once you get that introduction, guess what comes next? An Excel spreadsheet of all the contacts, the phone numbers or email addresses. When was the last time you touched base with them? What's the next step? What's the follow-up? When are you following up again? This is not a one shot and done. No, it is an ongoing prospecting list. And you're going to send them, thank you notes. You're going to send them articles. You're going to connect with them on LinkedIn. You're going to follow with them. You're going to push their content and push it out to your network. You're going to do all those kinds of things because there is a psychological reward for people who are helping you. And that is that you help them promote themselves, promote their content, their company. You're going to help them in some way. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Saumya, and I really like your Strengths Finder idea as well. I really like it. I haven't done it in years, but I do think that that's going to be one of the first things that I'm going to do when I get back home. What I was curious to know more about was when you talk about business impact, are you talking about results and outcomes focused measurement?
Yeah.
And basically, are we supposed to quantify each of those strengths, which could be difficult, but also necessary because you don't want to provide a lot of fluff about, I'm great at this, I really effectively did this, I coached all these people, but without the quantification, which might be hard to come by if you're not religiously tracking everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
so
just wanted to get more
yeah, so
perspective
you
on that.
mentioned really a couple of things. Number one, for those of you who are still employed, oh my God, have an Excel spreadsheet. I did this for my entire career. I kept an Excel spreadsheet of everything I ever accomplished, right? I launched a new product, great. Put that on my Excel spreadsheet, the date. I welcomed interns, right? I coached interns, put that one on my list. I did that for a number of reasons. One, at the end of the year when performance reviews come around, it's like, I know I worked my ass off, part of my expansion. I know I worked really hard, but I don't remember everything I did. So the Excel sheet helped me do that. But also it helps you when you get to this stage of your career transition, and now you're gonna come up with, quantifiable things. Hopefully you've quantified all year long. But back to your point, Sonia, yes, business impact, think of business impact is not just dollars or percentages, is did you resolve an issue for a customer, right? Customer retention is really top shelf for most companies today because that's one of their key measurements, right? Customer retention. Did you do something to retain customers, right? If you don't have identifiable, quantifiable percentages or dollar signals for your stuff, go to the company. What did they do during that year? During that year, they increased their revenue by 20%. Well, that might not be your number, but you're a contributor, right? So I've been in positions where I didn't have a sales target early in my career, so I used the company. The company did $3 billion that year. I was proud to be a contributor to the success of my company. So do some of those kinds of things, but also don't hesitate to go back if you have a relationship with your coworkers or your bosses. If you have a really good relation with your bosses, go back and say, how would you quantify what we did? The other idea is go online and search your job description. Your job description will have things like, significantly impacts the stability of employees so that they don't leave the company or something like that, right? They'll have something. They may not have quantifiable stuff, but they'll have quantifiable statements about what your contributions did. But if you can, do quantify them. Anything else? I think, yes, please.
When you are talking to your old colleagues, for example, how do you deal with the interactions? Like, we starts warm, but sometimes it becomes cold and they don't respond after you send your some documents, for example. I think all of us have gone through that. And so I know you don't want to like burn the bridge, but what's the best way to deal with those interactions?
Yeah, relationships get cold really quick when you leave a company, right? Under whatever circumstances, if you leave for better opportunities or whatever. It's really important to nurture those relationships while you've got them. But even after that, make the effort to connect with them. Again, LinkedIn is a great source. I cannot speak enough about it by sending them articles, or if you got their emails, send them articles, send them pieces of information. I divide my LinkedIn time into 3 different buckets. One is my profession. So I post a lot of things about my sales experience, sales profession. I do 10% about my personal stuff. Like, my mom, I've got the greatest mom or whatever. And then I'll do another percentage that is on things of interest, like artificial intelligence is of interest, or I'll do sports. When I do personal stuff, I'll do sports. Hey, how about that great game that we just saw with the UCLA girls, women's basketball game? So find some things that are of common interest and continue to nurture those relationships. But yes, understandably, some relationships grow cold, but they'll go colder if you don't reach out and nurture them in some way.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think along that line, I've been reaching out a lot to some of my past colleagues, and I have had some negative experiences, One where I completely decided not even to apply for that company based on how this person responded to a nice text message I sent them. It was so rude. But other ones where I've seen they've gone on to success on LinkedIn and they posted on LinkedIn, I've sent them a message and said, I've really enjoyed watching the success you've had in your career. I always respected you. I would love if we could catch up. And tomorrow I have a Zoom meeting with a gentleman who's been super successful. He graciously agreed to meet with me, and we exchanged messages. And I've had like 4 or 5 Zoom meetings. They haven't led to any jobs yet, but they've been refreshing where people are like, oh, Mark, I love working with you, and anything I can do, hey, reach out to so-and-so. So I agree with what you're saying. I have had some negative, and some of the ones I thought would respond the quickest, they've like they've ghosted me. They don't respond to me, um, after they're saying, hey, let's meet up, let me know. And then I say, hey, I am available, and I haven't heard anything back from them, but I've had some other great ones, so.
Yeah, so you've given the perfect examples about how to nurture relationships. There's got to be some authenticity to wanting to connect people, not just because you want their contact or all that kind of stuff. So the way you're doing it, but now you have another reason to call that individual back and say, I built a marketing plan for myself. I would really love your feedback. People do respond in kind. People do want to get together with people. People do want to help if they can, but they don't want all of that burden placed on them. I don't want you to call me and tell me how it's really hard to get a job and you really need a job. And I hate to say that, but people do not respond well. It makes them uncomfortable, especially if they can't help you, then they're really uncomfortable. Okay. Last thoughts? Yes, please.
So I took a leave of absence from my job and ended up leaving the job to care for family members that were ill. It was terminal illness. And so now I'm getting back into it, but it's been a year and a half since I last worked full time. How do you frame that in your conversations with colleagues, or what do you put on your resume? Do you put caretaking as your occupation during that period of time? Do you just leave it blank? Do you wait for them to ask you? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, your name?
Chris.
Chris, this is a really important question. And we were having sidebar conversations over here on the side. This is a really important question. If there's anything that you must have crystal clear, rehearsed, is an answer to why is there a gap in employment? Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or a year, somebody is going to ask that. You don't have to publicize it, right? You can put it on your account. You don't have to put it on your resume, but it is going to come up. And that is an answer that you must have crystal clear, that you're not looking around for the question, So, Chris, why have you been, why is there a gap for a year? Well, let me, I kind of, and then what happened? And then you're looking at this, people will not trust you if you start looking around as if you're grasping for the answers. The answer, there is no other answer, Chris. The answer is this: I chose to make my family a priority at a particular time that was really critical. That's it. There's no more flowery, no more running, trying to find excuses. No. And you look somebody in the eye and you say, I chose to start a family. I chose to prioritize my family at a time when they needed me most. I chose, because when it's our decision, they can't argue. And what's the follow-up question to that? Nothing. Nothing. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the really nice tips you gave us today. My name is Laisa, and still building on the resume, I'm going to ask 2 questions. You can try to answer in one phase. Let's see how that goes. So one of my questions is, about how far back you can go in your resume. Like, for example, I have lab experience since 2011. So I have a bunch of stuff that I can add there since 2011, but do I need to do that because resumes are so short? How can I shorten or make it in a way that makes sense? And the other question is related to the strengths. So, for example, I have the Clifton strength, the DISC assessment. Do you think it's a good idea to add any of them to my resume? And how should we do it?
So let me answer that question first because it's more top of mind. I wouldn't add it to your resume. I would attach it to the resume, right? Like your disc. I wouldn't make it a part of your resume document, but you can attach your disc, your themes from that, attach it so it's a complete package. So you can do that. How far do you go back? If you got 20 years experience, you're going to have probably a two-page document, two-page resume, right? I don't think you have to have it limited to 1 year. College, kids, usually, people in college, maybe their resumes, maybe a page. But here's the key thing. Couple things. Number one, the things you're putting on your resume, make sure they are business impactful. In other words, if you did 10 things in your job position, don't put all 10 things, put the top 3 or 4 things that really were the most important that made a difference to the company. Business impact. Secondly, most hiring managers don't want to know what you did when you were 18, except you. But they don't care what you did when you were out of college. They don't care what you did on your very first job. They care what you've done the last 10 years that is relevant to what they're doing. Okay. The other thing I'll mention about resumes, I get asked to review a lot of people's resumes, and when I review them, one of the first things I look at is your tense. Three things I look for. The tense, right? I did something. I led. I managed. Sometimes people mix tenses. I lead. I managed or managed. I mean, they mix the tenses, so I look for that. Number one. Number two, I look for what is the most important priority of things that really matter to a company. So if you say, well, I led organizational team meetings. Well, okay, what impact does that have? And is that if that's your first bullet, is that the most important thing that you did that made the company grow? No, I probably wouldn't even put that on there, right? Unless it's materially important to the position you're applying to, or it made a really important impact in the business that you had. So look at your tenses. The third thing, look at your tenses, look at the most important, make sure they're in the priority of importance. And the third thing is the word selection. I stay away from administrative words like facilitated. It sounds like an administrative assistant, right? Versus managed or versus led. If you want a $50,000 job, use $50,000 words that are administrative sounding, like administered or facilitated or things like that. If you want a $150,000 job, then get words that match that. I led, I managed, I directed. Even if you're not a director, right? Even if your title is not to be director of sales, hey, I still directed the project management of my biggest accounts or whatever it is. So look at the words that you select. I think I am out of time. Am I, Susan, or am I still good?
Yeah, we're just about at time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do respond. I know, if you have questions about your resume, if you're going into salary negotiations, definitely call me. I love that part of it. Love that part. It is the most important thing that you could actually negotiate for yourself. When somebody makes you an offer, don't say, gee, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Say, I'll take that under consideration. And walk away and then go think about it. What's that?
I just want to ask one quick question.
Here, just one second.
So you talked about that I chose to take time off to chose to make my family a priority. What if you didn't choose? What's your genuine, like, I don't want to lie, but what's my response to that?
It's still a choice you have to make.
But what's the,
Example.
I got laid off. That's my employment gap. How do I phrase that
Okay.
to put a positive spin on it?
So if you've been laid off and it wasn't your choice, that's okay. It's not uncommon today. So say my company had a restructure, however you name it, and I was one of the casualties. Because in this environment, good people get laid off. And it has nothing to do with their performance. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, if you've been laid off, you don't want to deceive anybody, because that's actually grounds for not getting a job, right? That could be grounds for termination down the road. So you don't want to fib about anything. In Chris's situation, it's a personal reason. The fact that you chose that is your answer. But if you've been laid off, you feel free to say that, and you don't go, oh, I got laid off. It's like my company made different, took different directions. And as a result of those directions, many of us were casualties of that decision.
And I'll just add to that as well. I know in the life sciences, there's been some layoffs recently. And one of the things that I get to do is talk to other companies to be like, hey, wanted to make you aware that however many people were recently impacted by this layoff. I will say I do think companies often when they're doing layoffs are them reaching out to us, reaching out to others to say, hey, can we do a career fair? How do we make this happen? How do we connect folks? I think what's been most impressive to me, and I can tell you this is something that's happening right now, is we had a major layoff at a partner company, and I have over 20 companies that are like, we'd love to hire them. Can you share their resumes ahead of this career fair? We'd love to connect with them. So definitely do see that engagement happening.
I think, Nellie, your point about choice applies to what you just asked. We went through a layoff, and after that, I chose to pursue continuing education, get more invested in some of the startup community things that are going on, and I've built out some of the education that I feel I need for my next. You're still making choices, so I want to agree with you on point number one. I think people have sympathy, but beyond that, it's like, what are you doing with your time off? So I want to agree with you on what you said there, and you can add
and
to
John,
that.
think of it this way. If I turn around and say, hey, John, my company made a change of directions, and as a result of that, I'm the casualty, but you know what? I've taken advantage of that time so that I can invest in myself so I can be a better contributor, to my next company. Tie them all together, bundle it up. Last comments, I'm over time. Susan's over here, so...
I just want to kind of follow up on her comment earlier. I also has been layoffs in last year, so I started as an independent consultant. I also was a hiring manager, and something that I'm not doing is applying for jobs that I'm overqualified, because generally speaking, when you are overqualified, you don't have room for growth, so you are automatically eliminated. So you are not considered for the app, especially these days where we have so many applicants. You are not doing a favor on, just applying on jobs that you are overqualified. So just kind of want to address her question earlier, and, avoid burnout, because when you do that, you just, you won't see a response and you get burned out on that process.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Frankly, I think I'd apply for a lot of positions. Number one, I want to take as much advantage of practicing my interview skills as I can. Okay, so if somebody's willing to talk to me and I'm overqualified for that. Number two, I'm going to sell the fact that I'm overqualified in the fact that I'm going to be a team member that will grow into other positions as the company grows, and I have the experience to back it up. I'm going to sell them on the fact that they're getting a great candidate with a lot of experience at an entry-level, budget. So I'm going to sell them on the fact of, why am I the best candidate? I don't care if I'm overqualified for your position. This is a position. Here's the thing. You have to convince companies that you really want to work for their company. You really want to make an impact for their company. That's your job, is to tell them, why me? And if I am overqualified and they decide that that's the case, okay, but I'm going to tell you why you should hire me. Even though I have more experience than what you need. You're getting a bargain. And you're getting you're getting an employee that is going to help you grow because I have the experience and I am going to grow into other companies as a company, into other positions as a company grows. So I wouldn't necessarily not, but let me tell you, everybody's in a different circumstance. And sometimes all you want to do is get something to carry you through until you find another career transition. And I get that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for your time. Love your questions. Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much.